The Pirates lost game one in Detroit 7-3, and Don Kelly made, in my opinion, the most questionable decision he's made since taking the reins as the Pittsburgh Pirates manager. That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yeah, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan, and yeah, the Bucs just got boat raced in Detroit. We'll discuss a really strange decision by Don Kelly, and I'm going to give you my All Ben Cherington Team. I'll explain that a little bit later. And I also want to talk a little bit about analytics in baseball, just misconceptions about it, understanding really what we're talking about when people complain about it, okay? What do you say about a game like this? Pirates started out like they were going to hit a little bit. Oh, we should also just stop and say congratulations to Brian, Reynolds, Blair, all the kids, mother-in-law, everybody. Congratulations. Brian Reynolds left this game early. His wife's gone into labor. His third child he's bringing into the world with his loving wife. Super happy for that family. It's a nice family. Great people. Let's talk a little bit about the game, though, because Alexander Canario, who replaced him, actually had a pretty big base hit single that drove in 2 runs in this contest. Adam Frazier had the other RBI. But all in all, most people didn't do much of nothing. It was very, very, very shut down. As soon as they scored that run, there was nothing left. There was nothing left. They fought with Mize the rest of the way, and then nobody surrendered anything the rest of the game. The Pirates just went down like quiet sheep. It was pretty quiet. Donnie Kelly makes an interesting decision in this one. First, let's talk about Bailey Falter, who is somebody that he's been quick on the trigger with before. We've seen him pull him out a little bit early. In fact, I think might have been the last time he was out, maybe the time before. He got pulled a little bit earlier than he would have liked. He was pretty visibly not pleased about the decision, right? And it ended up not working out. He brought in Chase Shugart, who gave up a run, and I think Bailey had a gripe there because he had probably earned trying to get out of it himself. Well, tonight, Bailey gave up a couple home runs. I'm not saying that he got hit around or anything, but the contact off of him was pretty solid. There were even some really nice line drives deep to the outfield that got caught. So, this could have been actually worse than it was. But Detroit hit 4 home runs tonight. So I could argue maybe he left Bailey in a little longer than he had in the past. The best I could get him on there is a little inconsistent. Last time you yanked him, this time you let him go. Okay. Manager's discretion, right? I get that. Carmen Baginski comes in, though. And Carmen Baginski has been a starting pitcher all year long. And he just made his first relief appearance 2 days ago. Did fine. They bring him into this one as a reliever, okay, to replace Bailey Falter and start the 6th inning. He gave up 2 home runs in this outing. That's not really where I question it, as much as he got into trouble in the 2nd inning that they tried to have him pitch, to the point where he had thrown at one point a little over 30 pitches. And I just got to question the wisdom of not leaving him in for the purpose of winning the game or saving the pen or anything. You'll find that I'll question a manager's decision a heck of a lot more if I think you're actually risking the player a little bit. I just think it's a little quick to ask Carmen Baginski to handle extended innings just 3 days apart after he hasn't done it all season long. I know what he did last year. I know what he was capable of last year. I know he has that in him. And maybe I'm making a big deal about something and I don't understand that in the background they've been working on this and they've been getting him up every other day. I don't know how they're working it. Maybe I'm making a big deal out of nothing. But it just seems a little strange to me that you would leave him in there seemingly to rot. He was getting hit. He was struggling. You could see he was laboring, especially in that second inning. Just one gripe about Don Kelly since he took over, I don't think is that bad of a percentage, right? I don't have to say that I think Don Kelly sucks as a manager now just because I got upset about something that he did one night. And upset's putting it really strong too. Just because I disagree or think that maybe there could have been a different path there, or should have been, doesn't mean that I think he's doing a terrible job. It just means like, you guess you kind of have to live and die by the gut if you want to believe in the gut, and that's when he's making those decisions. I just think that maybe there was a little bit of thoughtfulness that needed to come into play there. Next thing I want to say is Joey Bart comes back from the concussion, starts first game that he's back. I'm not going to read too much into this about what this means for the usage at catcher or how they're going to go about divvying up that labor between he and Henry. I said my piece on that on yesterday's show. We'll see how it plays out for a couple weeks, and then we'll kind of revisit it and see if we like what they're doing. And that's if Joey Bart makes it those couple weeks, because what happened tonight? Man, he took 2 foul balls right in the dome. And I mean right in the mask. Man, we've seen this story before, right? You get a guy who starts getting concussions and then they kind of just get into this rash of taking foul balls. And does this remind anybody of Francisco Cervelli? Where like he just could not avoid getting hit in the dome. It just seemed to happen to him over and over and over again. And even if he wasn't taking foul balls, he was getting back swings. That's happened to Joey all year long. I'm not wishing anything on him. I'm just, man, it wasn't pretty to watch. I was worried about him. Actually, he looked really stunned after the second one. And I know that after you come off of something like that, they will scrutinize you and they'll make you go through the protocols and everything. So I hope that everything's okay there. But he didn't look great at the plate tonight. That's probably to be expected. He hasn't been playing all that much, and a couple rehab games in AAA aren't going to do anything. But my concern with Joey is a little deeper than that, because, well, Joey wasn't really doing very good before he went on the IL. So I do have concerns about how many chips they're going to put in that basket. Spencer Horwitz continues to be one of those guys that just collects a hit just about every night, enough to keep his name on the stat sheet, enough to not fall down into that, oh my God, this is pathetic territory. He's hitting the ball hard. He's hitting the ball mostly for singles, I'd say, so far. I haven't seen that gap power that was honestly his biggest selling point. He was getting a lot of gap power hits in Toronto. I'd like to see that part of his rehab come back. He's been playing now for about a month. I'd like to see him really kind of step out and move forward a little bit. I'm waiting for that turnaround. I'm waiting for this Brian Reynolds reset that I think he needed really badly, that this paternity leave is probably going to afford him. And I called this the other day, but just because I have a feeling. Don't be shocked if Jack Sawinski is the call-up to replace Brian Reynolds on the roster for this paternity, because I think it's a low-risk way of getting eyes on him. You can bring him up and let him play a game, see how it goes. We'll see what they do with that. I could just be making that up. Maybe they'll go Billy Cook or Nick York. I don't know. I would think with Nick York, at least, I think if you would do Nick York, you want it to be permanent. So that's why I lean towards Jack Sawinski, because I think it's a way to Call him up without getting his hopes up too much because he understands it's about Reynolds. And it shouldn't put a lot of pressure on him. And you get a chance to like just creep him back up to the minors. From the minors, let's just see what he does. Let's see how he reacts. Let's see how he looks. Let's get him in the cage with our guys for a few days and take a look at what his swing looks like now. Is this real? Are the numbers in AAA just kind of because he's in AAA? That sort of thing. That's the way I'd go anyway. I think that's the move I'd make. We know he can handle the outfield, and that's important. When we come back, it's time. The All Ben Cherington starting lineup in rotation I'm going to give you, and my God, is it pathetic. You ever get home from an event and you look at your bank account and you go, what happened? Like if you hand your wife your debit card and she goes to the team shop on opening day and buys an authentic jersey for say $200, that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on Ubers when I would travel. Now I budget a little bit smarter, kind of plan my trips out a little bit better, and I save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's Monarch Money, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Hey, hit that subscribe button, hit a like, and take this little ride with me. I think this is going to be fun. Let's try to have fun together, okay? Let's do an all-time Ben Cherington starting lineup in rotation. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is the roster right now should be the product of everything Ben Cherington has done since he got here. You'd hope that, I could do something like this where I come up with a list and 75% of the answers I come up with, if he's done a great job, are probably on the roster right now. If he's done a bad job, I think you're probably looking at maybe half, but that would mean that he's gotten rid of some good pieces, or maybe not. Maybe what we'll find out is that my list is so bad that they never had and never replaced a lot of these positions. Let's look. Let's see. All right. Let's start with center field. Center field's an interesting one, right? Because Brian Reynolds has played there under Ben Cherington a little bit. They've had a bunch of Reynolds play out there. I'm not gonna think Anthony Alford's gonna win anything, or Gerard Dyson, or let's go on O'Neal Cruz, right? O'Neal Cruz wins center field. He is the Ben Cherington era center fielder. How about catcher? I went through mentally this list. You got Roberto Perez, you've got Austin Hedges, you've got Henry Davis. I think it's early to say what he is or will be or anything. Joey Bart had a good half season. He's not been good this year. He's really not good defensively. Andy Rodriguez just hasn't stuck long enough to even be considered. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go Jacob Stallings. Do you disagree with me? I can't think of anybody else. I'm going to go Jacob Stallings. I think Jake was probably... you know what? Let's get through the list and then I'll try to explain them. How about left field? Brian Reynolds. I don't think this one's an argument. Brian Reynolds, that's my answer. DH, Andrew McCutchen. He's pretty much been our DH almost since the DH became a thing. Outside of 2020 there, and they certainly didn't have overflow players to fill a DH spot. So let's go Andrew McCutchen. Second base. Oh, Nick Gonzalez probably hasn't done it long enough. Boy. You don't want Wilmer Defoe, do you? I'll tell you what. It's not because of how he's playing right now. Adam Frazier. Adam Frazier was an all-star second baseman under Ben Cherington. Adam Frazier's your second baseman. Third base got to be Brian Hayes is the only one they've had, unless you want to go Jared Triolo, and I'm not going to do that. First base. Wow. G-Man Choi. Yoshi. Man, we've had some winners, haven't we? Michael Chavis. Michael Chavis actually had a deceptively decent season for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He played primarily at first base there for a while. Boy, it's got to be Carlos Santana, right? It's not Rowdy. And I don't think you can give it to Horowitz. Yeah. I'm going to have to go Carlos Santana. It was probably the best one that we've had in the Ben Cherington era. Jack Sawinski is right field, I would say. The home runs are why. He had probably the two best seasons of any Pirates corner outfielder not named Brian Reynolds. I can't think of anybody else I'd put in here. Honorable mention, Ben Gamble. He was probably the most fun to watch out there, but yeah, boy. I'm probably gonna have to go with Jack Sawinski. Now, shortstop. Can I give Cruz 2 spots? No, I don't think that's fair. I don't think we can give Cruz 2 spots. So I'm trying to go back through my memory bank. You know, we've had Alika Williams. Nah. We've had Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Year and a half of Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. He's been hitting. I don't think he's very good at the position, really. I'll tell you what. I bet you're going to probably disagree with me here, but I'm going to go Kevin Newman. I think Kevin Newman was he had 2 good offensive seasons. One of them was not under Ben Cherington. One of them was. I think I'm going to go Kevin Newman, though. That's probably my final answer on shortstop because I can't give it to Oneil Cruz. So there you go. That's my everyday starting lineup of Ben Cherington winners. Oneil Cruz, Jacob Stallings, Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, Adam Frazier, Ke'Bryan Hayes, Carlos Santana, Jack Sawinski, and Kevin Newman. Now the rotation. Oh, the rotation. Paul Skeens. Super easy. Thank you for letting me take the cheat card. How about Mitch Keller? Mitch Keller, yeah, obviously. He's been a mainstay. Bailey Falter. Bailey Falter now is on his 3rd season as a Pittsburgh Pirate. I'm gonna give it to Bailey Falter. He's been really consistently part of this rotation. And I just think very good. Joe Musgrove. I'm going to go all the way back to Joe Musgrove. I think Joe Musgrove, as a Pittsburgh Pirate, was just starting to come into his own as a pitcher. He would really reach the height of his powers upon getting moved to San Diego. But I like Joe Musgrove in that mix, I would think, right now. And boy, you got your 5th spot. What do I do? You got all these lefties that have paraded through here. You got like Quintana, you got Tyler Anderson, you got Rich Hill, you got who else? Vince Velasquez, I guess you could throw into that. Jared Jones. Did he pitch enough to be one of my better pitchers? Maybe. I mean, he didn't even really complete a full season last year. And his second half wasn't all that good. That said, Tyler Anderson, he got traded at the deadline. So we're talking about 3/4 of a season versus 3/4 of a season. Let's go with Jared Jones. Okay. Jared Jones makes up my rotation. It's Jared Jones, Bailey Falter, Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, and Joe Musgrove. What do you guys think? First, that's not good. I probably don't need to go much further than that, right? I think the real point here is that I think that they've never really addressed a lot of these spots. That's pretty sad, actually. I they have some interesting pieces and parts right now, but I'm only seeing 4 players on this list that are actually still on the 26-man roster, and one of them, I think most of us were pretty fed up, got signed in the offseason in Adam Frazier, and he's overwhelmed us with good play as the season's played on. Not good. Time to go, Ben. There's another reason we've added. When we come back, let's talk about analytics a little bit. Misconceptions about analytics, how they're really used. I think this has just turned into a swear word for some of you, and it really ought not be. Whether you're gearing up for back-to-back meetings, shuttling kids back and forth to activities, or tackling an endless to-do list, your morning sets the tone for it all. That's why it should start with the perfect cup of coffee, crafted just for you. Enter Trade. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S., delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pour-over purist, they've got the roast you'll love. I just got my latest pack, Flatlander Signature Blend. And if you're a guy who uses flavored creamer in your coffee like I tend to, take my word for it. You want a cup of this stuff black first. So good and crisp, you'll love it on its own. I don't even walk down the coffee aisle at my store anymore. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering, for our customers, 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That's TRADE.com/lockedonmlb for 50% off your 1-month trial. Give it a shot. You won't regret it. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Earmuffs if there's anybody that grew up in the 70s and just can't hear the word analytics. Analytics. I know it's scary. It's scary. Listen, it's not that scary. Okay. You don't have to understand all of them. I don't understand all of them. I don't understand how they all are formulated. I do make an effort to try to figure them out. But they're also not something that you should just scream you don't want to hear about, or you think screws everything up, or you think baseball teams are being run entirely by them. I think it requires a little bit of a history lesson, to be honest. Like, somebody said something to me once about Gene Lamont getting hired, and they were like, hey, with Gene Lamont coming in, are we going to see this team finally stop managing by analytics? And I laughed it off at the time, like, because it's an old guy coming in, so you assume he doesn't know analytics or doesn't care. And then I really got to thinking about it, and I went and looked into it. And I started talking to some of my older contacts that have actually been around for long enough to have remembered Gene Lamont the first time around, and when he was actually a manager. Well, Gene Lamont used analytics. They just weren't called that. Gene Lamont used to keep a book of index cards for every hitter that he saw and their tendencies, and every pitcher that he saw and their tendencies. And he would use them when he was coaching his team, and especially when he was a bench coach for Jimmy Leland. He would sit down with the starter that day and go through his book of analytics. Except it was just a bunch of index cards with some tips and tricks for trends that he had picked up on with some of these guys. The only difference between that and today is that they're a little more formalized, and there's way more of them. Okay. I think the problem that a lot of people have is they think that analytics is a catch-all word, and you can just use it every time you see something that you don't agree with, or it's not something that's done the way it used to be done. Like, let's talk about pulling a pitcher out at 100 pitches. That's not analytics. That's training staffs. That's training staffs and their belief for best practices to keep pitchers healthy. You can argue with the training staff if you'd like. You can say they're wrong. You can say there's no proof. There is a growing groundswell of trainers that feel that way. There is a growing groundswell of trainers that feel like throwing more might keep players healthier than throwing less does. There are trainers that believe that. There just aren't enough of them in Major League Baseball. And when the vast majority of trainers agree with something, well, they don't just come to the teams and tell the teams what to do. Let's say there's 25 trainers that all agree that 100 pitches is like where you need to stop. Well, that wouldn't take hold because it has to infect the entire system. And then you got to go even lower than that. You got to get to the point where it's affecting the youth level players and the college players and the junior college players, and you've got to have everybody on this same page in order to start this vast conspiracy. It really starts when somebody thinks they can actually solve this arm problem thing. And there has been probably some players that responded very well to that treatment and didn't have a Tommy John, and there's some that don't and have the Tommy John. There's some people that just say you should accept that it happens. You should just say, screw it. You're going to have Tommy John at some point. It's a rite of passage, kid. Throw till your arm falls off. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of guys that'll sign that deal with the devil. It's the way it is. And you're not going to get outs in this league if you don't throw 95. So is it analytics? No. It's really trusting medicine. It's trusting the best advice of the vast majority of medicine. And once that advice gets into the ear of the Major League Baseball Player Association, well, guess what they're going to advise teams to do with their members? Right. This is a lot bigger than a team just deciding we're not going to live by analytics because Bob down at the bar told me not to. It's not like that. And another one is like saying you hate things like exit velocity or extension, like silly little stats like that don't mean anything to you because you care about results, right? You care about ERA and wins and losses. You don't care about extension and how hard he hit the ball. The reason that so many people care about those numbers today is, first of all, they're available. They weren't available before. And second, there's real science behind baseball. Everybody knows down to the fraction exactly the spin that a baseball is doing on its way to the plate now. You have that information at your fingertips. Your mom buys you a set of Encyclopedia Britannicas like way back in the day, and you ended up still being stupid when the SATs came along. Your parents probably didn't blame themselves because they gave you the tools. You're too dumb to use them. You get what I mean? You have all this information. Now you got to use it. Extension, for instance, when you're a small market team and you're trying to find an edge, you're trying to find a bit of talent that other people aren't valuing, like extension. You go and you get a guy like Bailey Falter who is elite at extension, 99th percentile in the league extension. Does it mean his results are going to be great? No. But it means that nobody else is valuing that stat, and you are, because you realize that extension equals 2 or 3 extra miles per hour on the fastball. And Philly's trying to sell this guy that only throws 92 miles an hour. So they don't value him on the market the way you value him because you paid attention to that extension stat. Get what I mean? Just like exit velocity. You can have a guy pounding balls, 110 miles an hour off the bat. And he's lining them right at second baseman, right at the right fielder, right at the center fielder, just getting out after out after out. He's hitting 100 after 50 at bats. And he sucks, right? He's not getting results. He stinks. Well, yeah. But if I'm a team like the Pirates, I might look for a guy like that who's putting up those kind of numbers, because I know that what's really happening is he's getting extremely unlucky, because you don't hit balls that hard that often and have the numbers he's producing. Now this horse has gotten out of the barn. Everyone's on board with that one, but it's where extension was 5 years ago. And that's how the game goes. That's how these new analytics come to be, and they come to be valued. That's not the measurement analytics, like the stuff that people talk about, like Wobicon and all that crap. I understand being frustrated with that. But some of these obscure stats, they have a place. They have a place because baseball at its core is a science. You're hitting a round ball with a round bat. You're setting the pace, the launch angle, everything for it is tracked, known, understood. You can affect it by changing things. That's why they follow this stuff. Sometimes dumb decisions are just dumb decisions. That one I talked about with Donnie earlier, that one analytics, my friends, that was just a mistake, I think. Ain't no book told him to do that. That's all I got for you today. Let's hope that the Pirates can come out and score 15 runs off Tarek Skubal tonight. Hey, a guy can hope, right? Let's go Bucs.